I remember going to see Iron Man in 2008 and knowing before the movie even started that there was a scene at the end of the credits I needed to wait and see. As I sat and waited, I wondered what it could be that was so important for me to see at the end, and when Samuel L. Jackson showed up, my expectations were legitimately blown. They had put one of the most important scenes of the whole movie at the end, where a lot of people wouldn't even see it. And from then on, checking to see if a post-credits scene was at the end of a movie became common practice. So let's take a moment and look at the history of post-credits scenes. Before we get into the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. Before we can talk about post-credits scenes, we have to talk about how we ended up with credits at the end of movies at all. Because as surprising as it might seem, things haven't always been that way. Back in the early days of Hollywood, you'd find the credits for most movies at the beginning of the film. They would usually be accompanied by music and art that would let you know what was going to happen in the movie. In the beginning, studios didn't have to list everyone who worked on the picture because a lot of the people who worked on the movie were employed by the studio themselves, not requiring them to get credit. But as time has gone by and more people have to be given the credit they deserve, the credit sequences got longer and longer, thus moving more and more names to the end of the movie. The eventual move to having a majority of credits moved to the end of the movie is also attributed to television. TV had been putting the credits at the end of their programming since the beginning, and with more and more movies planning to be featured on television eventually, they changed their format to better fit TV. For a lot of us, we experienced the old way of doing things when we would watch early Disney animated movies. We'd see that long opening credit sequence with songs we would later hear in the movie, and then when the movie was over, all we would see was the end, a Walt Disney production, cut to black. Disney would end all of its animated movies this way until 1985 with the release of The Black Cauldron. Of course, there were some movies that broke the trend of having no closing credits. The Wizard of Oz, for instance, has a listing of the cast at the end of the movie, which would have been very uncommon back in 1939. Things have begun to move more and more towards the end credits, with nowadays a lot of movies not featuring opening credits at all. This was extremely rare up until a little movie named Star Wars decided to do away with opening credits altogether, and though Star Wars wasn't the first movie to do so, with other popular movies such as Citizen Kane, The Godfather, and 2001: A Space Odyssey also skipping opening credits, Star Wars is given the credit for making it the popular move. And even though this is commonplace today, the director of the film, George Lucas, got into some legal trouble for doing it. You see, there's a reason we have credits in movies at all. The different unions and guilds in Hollywood require that people are recognized for their contribution to making the movie. There are different rules that apply to different jobs. For instance, actors usually have to be named twice during the credits of the movie, which is why in a movie that doesn't have opening credits, you will see their name flashed on the screen before the credits actually start to scroll by. The thing that George Lucas got into hot water for is that he didn't list the director's name, himself and Irving Kershner, during the first two Star Wars movies, which was the rule at the time. After being fined $250,000, he resigned from the Directors Guild. Later, when the policy changed, they asked him if he wanted to rejoin, but as a sign of protest, he has decided to stay out of the group to this day. With the popularization of no opening credits, we now have two lists of names that show up at the end of most big movies. So with all the pieces now in place, let's specify the two types of end credit scenes that we find in movies today. We have credit scenes, a scene that takes place as the names scroll by, and then we have post-credit scenes, scenes that take place after the credits have gone by. And we can split this group into two different groups as well. Mid-credit scenes, which would show up after the first listing of credits, and then the very end credit scene, which is after all of the names have gone by. Let's talk about a couple different kinds of scenes you can see happen during the end credits. The first kind of credit scene that I became familiar with was the blooper. Now, bloopers date way back into the 70s with movies like Cannonball Run featuring them. These would often show people messing up their lines and making different kinds of mistakes on the film. Another kind of blooper you can see in movies are when stunts go wrong. If you're like me and grew up in the 90s, you most likely saw these kind of bloopers during the Rush Hour movies. Bloopers became so successful that they even started to create animated bloopers for movies, which, unlike regular bloopers, require no extra work, meant that the animators and writers had to make new material just to be featured during these blooper segments. Another type of scene you can see during the end credit scenes is like a wrap-up of the story. An example of this would be Ferris Bueller's Day Off, where you see what's going on with the principal, or maybe it can lead to a more somber ending, like with the images shown during the end of The Night of the Living Dead. Pixar's newest movie, Luca, also features these still images that tell a continuation of the story that we saw during the movie. Sometimes the thing that happens during the movie isn't an actual scene, but only a sound that we hear. At the end of Star Wars Episode 1, as the credits are finishing up, you can hear Darth Vader breathing. At the end of Halloween, you can hear Michael Myers breathing. Of course, it isn't always horror elements. Sometimes you're reminded of the fun you've had. At the end of the movie Aladdin, you can hear Genie talking over the credits.
You have been a fabulous audience. Tell you what, you're the best audience in the whole world.
And then, of course, there's the staple for children's entertainment, the dance party over the credits. Puss in Boots, the Angry Birds movie, the Lego Batman movie all feature dance parties over the credits. Though it isn't always just children's movies, as Rat Race also features a dance party to Smash Mouth's All Star. Usually if a comedy has a post-credits scene, it's going to be used to get one last laugh, often a callback to something that happened earlier in the movie. For example, in the classic Airplane, there's a post-credit scene that cuts back to a taxi that's still waiting for somebody to get back into it.
Well, I'll give him another 20 minutes, but that's it.
Ferris Bueller pops up here as well, with at the end he's telling everyone to go home because the movie's over. Super Mario Bros. Features a quick scene with a tease of Iggy and Spike getting their own video game.
The Super Koopa Cousins.
Arnold Schwarzenegger shows up in Jingle All the Way, showing us that he's not only a horrible father, but also not a very good husband either. And when I was in high school, the dodgeball post-credit scene would always get people laughing. Outside of comedies, post-credit scenes are usually used to introduce the idea for a sequel to the movie you just watched. This can go all the way back to the movie Young Sherlock Holmes, which introduces the idea of an established character turning into Moriarty, or in the Masters of the Universe movie with Skeletor revealing that he's still alive. Sometimes a post-credit scene can be kind of lazy and just be a trailer for the next movie in the series, like in The Matrix Reloaded or Captain America: The First Avenger. Speaking of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they really did revolutionize the idea of having post-credit scenes. Before Iron Man, you might want to sit through the credits to listen to some more of the music, or to see some names, or just chat with your friends, but after that scene with Samuel L. Jackson, it became required to sit and wait. You would look at the people who were getting up and leaving during the credits and think to yourself, what are they doing? Don't they know there's more to come? The MCU has a number of different kind of post-credit scenes that they show, from Easter eggs to setups for future movies, and sometimes just jokes at the viewer's expense.
Hi, I'm Captain America, here to talk to you about one of the most valuable traits a soldier or student can have: patience.
DC has tried to mirror this success by including post-credit scenes in a lot of their movies as well, with teases for the Justice League and Suicide Squad, to teases of the forming of the Legion of Doom at the end of Justice League and Aquaman. None of them have proven to be as successful. This year, 19 movies have already had post-credit scenes, compared to the 23 movies that had post-credit scenes in the entire 1980s. It's become required to check and see if you need to wait till the credits are over to go home. And as much as I like sitting and waiting in the movie theater, it does make me feel bad for the people who are trying to clean up all that popcorn. Thanks for watching this week's video. What's your favorite post-credit scene? Let me know in the comments down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you next Saturday. Till then, take care.